All right, we're going to go ahead and get started today. I'm sure we'll have a few people join in the first few minutes, which is okay. I have this session recorded, and I'll make sure that I get it sent to anyone who needs it. So we will not worry about that and go ahead and get started. Thanks everybody for joining us today. We're really excited about this call. It's been a partnership that has been in the making for quite a long time, and it's been a partnership that's been really good for the first several months that we've had it, and we're excited to publicly announce the partnership of BlueArrow and Fleetcor. Fleetcor has been a really big push for us for a long time. We have been talking to different fuel vendors for so many years because it's been such a pressing issue for so many of our customers, and we've never quite found the right fit until several months ago when we partnered with Fleetcor, and it's going to be a really good partnership moving forward. And there's going to be some huge benefits for our customers. So today we're going to touch on a couple things, and it will not be a long webinar. Please keep all questions to the end, or just throw them in the chat box so we can get those addressed at the end. We're going to go over who Fleetcor is, and we have Susan from Fleetcor. She's actually going to touch on all that sort of stuff. And then we're also going to talk about the fuel card integration with Geotab that we have with Fleetcor. So that'll be exciting as well. And it's really the two in combination that are really going to power our customers to really have much better insights on their fuel and help manage the fuel expenses, moving forward for their fleet. So without further ado, Susan, I will let you go ahead and jump in, and I'll let you just tell me to move the slides.
Certainly. Thank you very much. I'm very pleased to be here to represent Fleetcor. And just so you hear it from us as well, we're as excited as BlueArrow is about this partnership. And I think Dallas positioned it properly. Most of you probably know more than we do the importance of being able to manage fuel. And we hear it quite frequently, and people are very, very excited about the ability to integrate fuel cards with the Geotab GPS. And through our unique partnership with BlueArrow, that's exactly what we're bringing to you today. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about who Fleetcor is, and I'll tell you a little bit about how integration works and benefits you as a customer. And so why don't we start, next slide, please. So I'll just start and set the stage for you. Like I've mentioned, many of you probably realize this. I know from talking to Dallas that we have, some of you have larger and maybe some medium-sized fleets. But we know for sure that about 42% of small and mid-sized businesses have experienced some form of fraud due to lack of controls. The idea of integrating a fuel card with your Geotab GPS is about providing better control over fuel and also simplifying compliance and reporting, and we'll talk about that in a few minutes. If you are a company that's here and you have a larger fleet, even likely, again, more than we do, the importance of being able to manage and track that fuel spend. Next slide. So I'll tell you a little bit about Fleetcor. You may not have heard the Fleetcor name, but it's likely that many of you have either heard the name of one of our brands or are maybe even using one of our fuel card brands. Fleetcor has been around since 2000, but the companies that comprise our business have been around a lot longer than that. Many of you may already know the Comdata name and our Fuelman name. Fuelman's revered by mixed fleets, and the reason is because it's a local and well-known fuel card and a fuel card brand. And then our Comdata brand is known by over-the-road truckers, a very, very recognized brand. We are about 8,000 employees strong with about 800,000 customers. And again, we believe that that helps to support the partnerships that we create. And it just means that you're backed in our relationship with BlueArrow by a company who has been around for a while and recognizes some of the things that drive your business. Slide. We're really partnering with Blue Arrow, and we feel like it's important for you to provide your business with fuel card transaction data by matching the Geotab GPS data with the fuel card transaction data to help you fight fraud and misuse. And we do that by being able to identify the location of a vehicle at the time of a purchase. Again, our unique relationship with Blue Arrow allows you to integrate a Fleetcor Fuel Card with the Geotab GPS, and then for that information, the transaction data, to show up in the reporting that is provided to you by Blue Arrow. Next slide. And finally, we want to just talk to you a little bit about and share with you what the benefits are. Some of you may already know about fuel cards. We know for a lot of small fleets, they may be using a business card. I can't tell you how many times I'm at a dinner table at an event where I'm talking to a smaller business where they're managing a fleet and they're using a standard credit card, and the comment is always, well, I want to get my wife to Hawaii, or they're using some business card. But as your fleet grows, it's important to be able to manage the cost of fuel. And our cards by themselves, the fuel cards from Fleetcor by themselves, really do have enhanced security. They offer the ability for you as a business owner to ask the driver to identify a driver ID and PIN to validate who they are and when they're making a charge. You can set spending limits, and this is the merchant type, the day of the week, the time of day that a charge is made, and help you to kind of understand and control expenses by tracking those expenses. The unique thing that you get when you integrate a fuel card with your Geotab GPS through our relationship with Blue Arrow is that you're given the ability to now flag suspicious transactions to help identify potential for fraud and misuse. You're also able to reduce fleet expenses by being able to control and compare. I was recently talking to someone who is using the information to figure out budgeting, and also looking and tracking fuel expenses to be able to identify maintenance requirements. But I think the biggest thing that we hear that people are using this for, in addition to identifying the potential for fraud and misuse, is to use it for reporting. So expense reporting, they use it in many ways to help simplify the tracking of IFTA for both themselves and also the drivers that are a part of their team. With that, I'm going to turn the floor over to Dallas and let him talk to you a little bit about Blue Arrow and how fuel card integration works specifically with Blue Arrow.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Susan. I appreciate that. And before I even go into the integration itself, I just want to make a statement. I have been on several customer calls with Fleetcor and my customers of them interested in just the Fleetcor program and the actual cards. And this ranges from people who have already had fuel cards with other vendors, or are in the group that they just use a standard business expense card. And it's really, really opened my eyes to a lot of differentiators that Fleetcor has and what they bring to the table. And I just really, really want to recommend that if you are not currently using, one of their cards, to reach out to myself or someone on the Blue Arrow team to get set up with a call with them and really just do a quick overview of what you're doing. Let them, give you a return on investment of what it would look like if you switch over to one of their cards. And I promise you, it'll at least be worth your time. So I just wanted to make that recommendation really quick. Now, moving into the actual integration. Some of you may have seen this integration before. It is something that we have really put a lot of time and effort into over the last year. And it's been a really big success with a lot of our biggest customers and some of our smallest customers. We've seen fleets under our umbrella with thousands of vehicles implement this, and we have fleets with 5 vehicles that have implemented this. So it's really gotten exposure to a lot of different size fleets and also different industries, from trucking to service to construction to the EMS and health world. There's a lot of different types of fleets using it. This program is meant to do a few different things. Number one, of course, we want to find any sort of fraud or misuse within your organization. but mostly we actually just want to take the burden of time for people manually checking fuel transactions. I've had so many different conversations with customers, especially when they're on the larger side and have a lot of vehicles, where they either have full-time people just checking fuel transactions, if not full-time people just doing that. They have different operations and admin staff spending a lot of hours per week just checking fuel transactions, making sure that nothing looks suspicious, make sure that everything looks normal. And it's really those hours that we want to eliminate all the headache from those hours. We want those hours to be spent doing other things for your organization that is driving revenue and driving profits, not just having to check fuel transactions. So really a success for us, of course, other than stopping misuse and fraud, is to really cut down on the time spent managing your fuel. Okay, now there's gonna be a lot of different data that we can pull. So pairing the Fleetcor card, whether it's a Fleetcor card or anything in their family, pulling any of those cards and the Geotab data is going to give you really five different types of alerts. And just to mention, we are actually releasing a lot of new updates this year. I may have one of our guys on the call kind of go through that. The guy that is our lead developer, I may have him mention a few things that we have coming up. But the things right now are, you see on your right, vehicle not reporting, which is basically if someone tries to unplug a GPS device to get around it, it may be because they're at a cell service or something. But what we want to do is we just want to we want to take away every opportunity for someone to be able to get around the system, right? The biggest one, location mismatch. This is going to be when a fuel card was swiped and the actual vehicle that fuel card was supposed to be paired to was not at the station at time of fueling. Okay, fuel level mismatch. This is when Geotab gives us this data, which we could talk about, of course, on a more specific basis later. But just to give you an example, what we're trying to figure out is, okay, if 20 gallons were purchased on the fuel card, we want to make sure that 20 gallons actually went into the fleet vehicle. So if we're seeing only 10 gallons or only 5 gallons go in, we're going to flag that as a fuel level mismatch, and we want to drill down and see what's going on. Fuel type mismatch. This will be if you have diesel trucks and you see different purchases of regular fuel being purchased on the fuel card, we're going to, of course, alert you for that. That could be a huge red flag. We don't want anyone, using the fuel card to fill up their personal standard truck or anything like that. And then the last one is multiple alert. This is going to be if a fuel card is swiped multiple times, at the same time, at the same station. And to give you an example of what that would be is we've had a lot of customers over the years, even before we had this integration, tell us stories about they had employees out in the field and they were caught at gas stations selling gas. So to give you an example, if you don't know what that is, they would go up to somebody pumping gas and say, hey, I'll give you $20 of fuel, my fuel card, if you give me $10 cash, right? That's an example, of course, but they would go around and do that. And, that's probably a rare example, but people will do crazy things. And so when you actually have these different alerts coming in, you'll see this in your dashboard. And this is all within your Geotab environment, but you're going to see a list of your bad transactions. And so you'll see over here to the left, according to your legend, what type of transaction it is. It'll give you some information on driver, the cost of the transaction, the gallons associated, the date, and then you'll have an info button, which you can actually click into, which I'll show you what that looks like in a moment. And then right beside it, you'll have your worst offenders. Now, your worst offenders is a really cool list, because what this is going to do is this going to just rank your drivers from worst to best, meaning your worst drivers are going to be the drivers that have the most infractions that are any of these criteria. Okay. And one thing to note before I move on is that any of your dashboard data or your worst offenders data can be filtered, sorted. There's a lot of different customization that can be done on here. So you can filter it to just show location mismatch, or just show the last 2 weeks or the last year of transactions, right? There's a lot of different things you can do to filter down just the data you want to see. Okay. And now drilling down into this info button, I just want to show you two examples, and I'm just going to show you the location mismatch and the fuel level mismatch. So when you click that information button, it's going to pull up some information for you. Number one, it's going to give you all the information from the fuel card that we're pulling directly over. Okay. And then what you're also going to see right here is why this transaction got flagged in the first place. Right here, it shows us that the vehicle was 3.15 miles, which you can see represented here on the graph, was 3.15 miles away when that fuel card was used. Okay. A lot of times what we've seen in this situation is someone out in the field will go drop their truck off at their home. They'll grab their personal truck. They'll go to the closest gas station or a gas station down the street. They'll fill up their personal truck and then go do a swap. So that's just an example of when that would happen. And on the right here, what you're actually seeing is the email alert that would come to you as a manager when something like this happens. Okay. A few other things to also note on the location mismatch is what we've seen with other integrations, because there are a couple other integrations out there that do just show location mismatch and not the other ones that we've talked about. But what we see is that sometimes the fuel card will give us the wrong address. It's not their fault. It's usually because of a Google mapping issue. And so if you have any sort of major roads in your town or your location, you may see that a gas station, for whatever reason on the map, on the Google map, shows up 2 miles down on that same street, and it's not actually accurate. So what we can actually do is we can go hit correct it. We can actually physically move the gas station to the correct spot on the map. We can hit save. What it's going to do is it's going to reprocess all the previous transactions to make sure that this wasn't an issue in prior transactions. It'll fix this transaction, and then it'll also fix all transactions moving forward. This should be a rare thing. We have just seen it a couple times on a road called Capitol Boulevard here in the Raleigh area. For some reason, Google doesn't like that road and likes to mess up gas stations. So we just wanted to have the ability to do that. And the other option you'll see is good transaction. This is those times, and this a lot of times happens. Sometimes upper management or the owner of a company is purposefully misusing a card. They just have a card. It could be one of his employees' cards. And they're just using it because it's the most convenient one. We can mark them as good transactions if any of those type transactions show up on this report. So just to mention a few things. Okay. The next one is the fuel level mismatch. So what you're seeing here is all the same data that we saw before, but then in the actual device details, we're seeing a 21.9 gallon fuel difference. Okay. And you actually will see that 21.9 gallons were purchased on the actual fuel card itself. And so none of this fuel went into the station. Now you'll also see a distance of 0.02 miles. In this example, our threshold is 0.15 miles. So anything within 0.15 miles is not going to flag a distance threshold, just a fuel level or a fuel difference in this example. And so you see that the vehicle is very close by. It's probably, the GPS probably didn't pick it up because now the GPS is underneath a metal structure. And so it's just kicking out a little bit. But you'll see that there's a fuel difference of 21.9 gallons. Again, over here on the right, you'll see that this is the actual email alert for this. Okay, moving on. Now, this is called our worst offenders detail. Now, just to remind you on that original slide I showed you, there was that worst offenders list on the right. This is going to be, if you actually click on one of those drivers' names, it'll bring up this window for you. Now, what this will do is it'll actually show you all the transactions associated with that driver. So, for example, in this one, this is a fake data, of course. So Taylor Braswell, he has looks like 6 different transactions associated with him. It'll show you that there's $464 total money in dispute, 233.8 gallons in dispute, and it also will show you how many of each type of transaction alert that they're getting flagged for. And then you'll see all the transactions here. Of course, you can hit this info button and you can see that same information box shown on previous screens. So this will be allow you to not only see all the bad transactions in your fleet, but this will allow you to drill down on individual drivers in your fleet. And hopefully, you have no worst offenders, but most likely if you have a significant amount of vehicles, you will have bad apples, as we say, in your fleet that may be abusing or misusing fleet cards or any kind of fuel cards. And so this is just another control that we put into place. Okay. Another thing just really wanted to quickly mention is our reporting. Now, this is actually about to get even more upgraded this year, but of course, all this data that we find can be pulled right into an Excel or a CSV, which we know that many of our customers require for different types of things. And so we want to make sure that this data is available to you. Now, a few things I wasn't going to go over, but if you fall into this category, please reach out to us and we'll have a more deep conversation. We also have the ability to integrate all of these fuel transactions into your IFTA reporting in Geotab. So a lot of our ELD customers and anyone under the ELD mandate, they love this feature because we have the ability now to not rely on the driver to enter in fuel transactions or have to enter them in after the fact on a quarterly or monthly basis, but automatically all these transactions are getting added directly to your IFTA report to make your life much, much, much easier. And then, of course, we can also automate the IFTAs nowadays too. So we can really close the circle on the entire automation process. If that is something that you're interested, please reach out to us. Anyone on the staff here is more than knowledgeable to talk to you about this. And so I just wanted to mention that. Okay. And that is it for me. So any questions that, and please just put your questions in the chat box and we'd be happy to answer them if they're for myself or Susan. And actually, while we're waiting for those, Tucker, if you are still on the call, do you mind going through all the updates that are coming this year, or at least the bigger ones?
Yeah, definitely. The two most exciting features that are coming, they're going to be done really soon. They should be ready around the beginning of February, are going to be two new alert types. One is going to be a filling time alert, and that's going to allow users to set up a threshold of time they want to be alerted for if their vehicle's at the gas station for longer than that time. So Geotab actually did a study recently. They have a ton of data. So they went through and looked at all that data, and they found out the average time that a vehicle spends at a gas station is 8 minutes. So if that's the average, maybe you want to be alerted if your vehicle spends more than 12 minutes at the gas station, because, it might not seem like a lot, but that really adds up over time. They also found vehicles stop on average about 8 times a month to fill up for gas. Obviously, every fleet's different, but if you think 8 times a month and it could be 5 to 10 minutes per stop that they're taking longer than they need to at the gas station, that could really add up for your fleet if you have a significant number of vehicles. And then the other type of alert is going to be filling percent alert. Geotab also found in that same study that over 85% of vehicles will fill up at least once in a month with more than 50% tank capacity left. So that's just being inefficient. That's extra miles driven out of the way to get to a gas station, which is costing obviously fuel, wear and tear in the vehicles, and time. So I think those are two really exciting features, especially for companies that aren't necessarily worried about fuel theft. This would give them a huge benefit still using this platform, because you're going to see just an immediate return on investment just for cutting out those two types of behaviors and habits that drivers have kind of gotten into.
Awesome. Thanks, Tucker. So I do not see any questions that have come in, which is fine. Please, if you have any questions and want to speak to us directly, please reach out to us. We will guide you through the process to get set up with Fleetcor and with our BlueArrow Fuel integration. It's a very, very simple process. So please reach out to us at your convenience. Thanks so much, everybody, for joining us. I will get this recording out to everybody on the call and anyone who could not make the call today so that you can view at your own convenience. Thanks so much and have a great weekend.